Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on something kind of hidden. It's this quiet social crisis that's affecting millions and millions of people. And the weirdest part? It's a story about being totally written off by society, not with cruelty, but with kindness. Okay, let's just jump right in with a number. 35 million. And no, that's not a company's profit or the population of some huge country. It's actually the number of surplus men in just one country. So yeah, we're talking about the gender imbalance in China. And you hear that number, 35 million extra men, and your first thought might be, wow, that's gotta be a dating paradise for guys, right? Well, the reality couldn't be more different. For so many of these men, the truth is, it's the total opposite of a paradise. It's a life of being just quietly, politely, and permanently ignored by society. It's what some people call a soft social death. All right, so to really get how this all started, we've got to look at a specific group of men in China. They're known as Guanggun, which translates to something really poetic, bare branches. So how in the world did this happen? Well, it was like the perfect demographic storm. You had the one-child policy, right? Combine that with a deep cultural preference for sons, and boom, you get a massive surplus of men. And the real kicker? This surplus is mostly in the poorer rural areas. Meanwhile, women are, for good reason, looking to marry up into wealthier, more urban families. So what's the end result? You've got millions of guys with basically zero realistic chance of ever finding a partner. And that name, Bare Branch, it's such a heavy thing to carry. I mean, think about it. In a culture where continuing the family line is one of your most important duties, being called a bare branch is this constant public reminder that you've failed. And then you've got the money problem. It's just this huge economic wall. To even get a foot in the door, a man's family might need to scrape together what's called a bride price. We're talking around 85,000 US dollars. For many, that's an absolutely impossible amount of money. It can bankrupt a whole family. And even then, there's no guarantee it'll work out. So you might be wondering, how does society actually treat these guys? Is it open hostility, scorn? Nope. It's something way, way more chilling, actually. It's this performative, almost suffocating kindness. You literally hear people whispering things like this in the villages. And that kind of pity, it's not comforting at all, right? It's just confirming their status as this local tragedy. It's basically saying, yeah, you're a lost cause. And this is where it gets really interesting. You see this profound contradiction. A mother might say these really nice words to a man's face, but at the exact same time, she's physically steering her own daughter away. The words say one thing, but the action is building a wall right in front of him. You know, psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called pity contempt. It's this weird mix, right? The pity part makes you be all polite on the surface, but the contempt underneath, that's what makes you keep your distance. It's kindness that's really just a barrier. So here's the bottom line. This soft treatment, it isn't comforting in the slightest. It's the final nail in the coffin. It's the ultimate confirmation that you've been written out of the main story of your own society. It's like hearing a door gently but very firmly lock forever. But here's the thing. This whole dynamic, this condemned to kindness idea, it isn't just happening in China, not by a long shot. It turns out to be this tragically universal human script. It pops up anytime a group of people is seen as having failed at one of their culture's most important goals. I mean, just look at this pattern. We're talking about totally different cultures, but the script is almost exactly the same. In Japan, you've got unmarried parasite singles who get the super polite treatment. In old rural Ireland, it was the confirmed bachelor who'd get gifts of cake, but everyone would talk about him in these hushed tones. See the theme? When you're written off, you get this very careful, very distancing politeness. Okay, so let's shift gears and see how this same pattern plays out in more modern settings. Because here, it's not a government policy causing it. It's the raw power of economics. You could call it a conquest by wallet. Take what happened in Eastern Europe after the Iron Curtain fell. It was this kind of quiet conquest. Western economies didn't need to send in armies, they just offered better jobs and a way out. And what happened was a huge drain of young women who left for better opportunities in the West. This left behind a massive surplus of men in these dying villages. This whole process, some people call it a hypergamy drain. It's basically the idea that women, quite logically, tend to look for partners in better economic situations. And this created a whole new generation of European bare branches. And guess what? They faced the exact same social script of pity and contempt, all because a huge economic shift basically made them redundant. And get this, you see a weirdly gilded version of this exact same thing in one of the richest places on the planet, Silicon Valley. For some immigrant groups working in tech, the gender ratio is just wild. It can be as high as 3 men for every 1 woman. So you have these guys who are, by all accounts, economic winners. They're earning massive salaries. But socially, they're casualties. They're trapped in what you could call golden handcuffs. They're making too much money to leave, but they're in a city that's so expensive and a dating market that's so skewed, they can't build the traditional family life their culture expects of them. Okay, so what's the final and maybe the cruelest irony in this whole story? It's what these men actually do for the very societies that have pushed them to the side. They're basically the system's applauded mules. Think about it. In every single one of these cases we've looked at, the men who are socially excluded are often the ones doing the absolute hardest, most essential, and most invisible work. They're the ones farming the land, keeping the villages from falling apart, writing the code that our entire world runs on. And society genuinely needs their labor, right? The applause they get for their work, that's real. But the appreciation for them as people, that's just a performance. Because the one reward that really matters, the one thing that would mean they're a full member of society, a family, a legacy, that's the one thing that's forever off the table. So I guess that leaves us with one final thought. Maybe we should all start listening a little more carefully to the sound of kindness and ask ourselves, is this a real invitation to connect? Or is it just the quiet, polite sound of a social eviction notice being served?